interest with their clients and colleagues to make them great fits for their organization. And I show my clients how through the FACE framework, which is familiarity, authenticity, curiosity, and elasticity. But since I have a shorter amount of time with you today, I'm going to focus on curiosity for the next few minutes. Sometimes we miss out on the best relationships in life because we approach people with judgment instead of curiosity. Now last year, I was on a flight from Chicago to LA, sitting in my window seat as usual, when the person next to me bent over to grab a snack out of their backpack. And when they sat up, I saw the snack was a blue bag of Cool Ranch Doritos. Now if you know me, I am a red bag of nacho cheese Doritos kind of gal. And I'm honestly not the pickiest eater, but I will say I can't stand the blue bag of Cool Ranch Doritos. Something about the smell just irritates me. So I'm watching her open this bag ever so slightly, ever so discreetly, with that plastic wrapping slowly opening, exposing the silver interior lining. When all of a sudden, there was a pop, and out burst the smell of Cool Ranch Doritos. It stunk up the entire row. Now, you know when you go to a holiday party, or maybe summer's coming up, let's say a backyard barbecue or a pool party. It's a potluck. Someone always brings a fruit platter. Now imagine you left that fruit platter outside for 1 week straight after the party. That is what this row now smelled like. And it got me thinking that, I was thinking, wow, if she had only had like the red bag nacho cheese Doritos, this row would actually smell nice. But yeah, I just started to think about like, wow, like, why does my impression of this person change so much because of the bag of chips she decides to consume? And like, what does that say about me as a person to not even strike a conversation with them because of my dislike for the bag of chips? And it really felt like a missed opportunity to be able to make a connection, whether it was a casual conversation on the flight or it could have been a casual conversation on a flight, it could have been a business connection, it could have been the future godmother of my child. It could be just this really neat connection, but I was too proud to talk to her because of the bag of chips she decides to consume. But as human beings, it shows that one of our basic needs is to be accepted. It goes back to food, water, shelter, acceptance. And anyone can be your people. So it's not a matter of if they are your people, it's how they are your people. So how you find your people is not by approaching them with judgment, but by approaching them with curiosity to find what you have in common to bring you together. So step one in your networking efforts, whether it's socializing at a children's birthday party or today at the Chamber of Commerce, is to be open and willing to approaching anyone. Sometimes in networking efforts especially, we might do our research and go into the networking event wanting to talk to someone with a fancy title or a prestigious organization. And that's great and all. That's great and all too, but with these organizations, you never know where people's lives are going to lead them. So the assistant now could be the director later, or the startup now could be a Fortune 500 company later. So instead of approaching people with judgment of their title or the company they work for, just be open to speaking to anyone. Because really wherever you sit at the table is going to influence the next step in your career potentially. But step two here is to ask questions. So have you ever been in a conversation with someone and they're asking you lots of questions? They want to get to know you. Every answer to their question leads to more questions and more answers. And it's quite flattering when people want to get to know you. But I encourage you to pay it forward and then ask other people questions to get to know them as well. Then step three is to find those commonalities. So as you're asking more and more questions, getting to know them, you're finding what you have in common with them, and then from there you can expand on those commonalities. So think about a time when you bonded with someone over a shared hobby, a shared belief, or a shared life experience. The key word here is shared. People bond over what they share more than what they don't share. They bond more over their similarities more than their differences. To give a quick example, I believe we're in LA County right now, so my cousin Dodgers fans in the house. But you could be at a networking event where you meet an Angels fan, probably the top rival, right? So instead of focusing on what you don't have in common, which is the team that you support, focus on what you do have in common, which is your love for baseball. So it could be how you both have season tickets, or you were both the shortstop in your high school baseball team. It could be you have a favorite snack at the game, or both got engaged in the third row of like right behind home plate. Who knows, it could be anything. So focusing on what you do have in common will strengthen those bonds. And I actually know that on a chemical level as well. So make people feel good about themselves so they feel good about you. One of my favorite fun facts I learned recently is that happy chemical in our brain, dopamine, is actually associated with memory. And what's fascinating is that if you're in a conversation with someone, you're having a very meaningful conversation, you are thoroughly enjoying your time with them, then if dopamine is released during that conversation, it makes you a more memorable person on a chemical level. So at the end of a long conference, when you have a stack of business cards or 50 emails, if you see that person's business card or that name in the email, you're more likely to remember them because of the dopamine that was released during the conversation that you had with them at said conference. And that's who you want to be. Since we've all been that person who emails and never hears back from the person, or emails and has to follow up 20 times. But they're more likely to respond to you if you develop that relationship before you make those, I would say, non-facial communications here. So curiosity, asking people questions, leads to finding commonalities, and that then leads to building trust, which is the foundation of building relationships. So there you have it, is one of the elements of the FACE framework, which is familiarity, authenticity, curiosity, and elasticity. And I call this framework FACE because the whole point of building relationships is to feel seen. And what better way to feel seen than to show your face? Now, trust is also the extra credit element of building relationships and the FACE framework. And I say that because we are all multifaceted individuals. But building relationships through demonstrated interest is the foundation of networking. So you would show demonstrated interest through familiarity by attending, coordinating, leading events. You show demonstrated interest through authenticity by opening up, sharing your story. And you also show demonstrated interest through curiosity by asking others questions and finding what you have in common. Then lastly, you find demonstrated interest through elasticity by adapting your communication to match who you are speaking to and where you are speaking to them. So stop focusing on making contacts and start focusing on making connections. Make connections for the sake of making connections. You never know where people's lives are going to take them, but you also never know where your life is going to lead. So although we network a lot of times with intentions to make those connections to build our businesses, we also have to think about how we can help other people as well. And you'll find too that networking in general can have a bit of a stuffy feeling. I think just like saying the word, sometimes I feel a bit of that icky feeling, right? Because you imagine like the kind of, here's my card, please hire me, I need to provide for my family, I also don't want to come off like I'm using you or too pushy. But if you approach it more like a friendship where you're getting to know someone for who they are and you're having those more fun conversations about who they are as a person, not so much strictly business related, and you'll find that many doors open and the synchronicities follow because the intention is to get to know them as a person before a business partner. So that is almost the conclusion of my speech. This QR code will actually take you to a survey to let me know how I did today. And although I spent the last 10 years in higher ed, I am building a professional speaking business myself too. So it'd be great to know how I did today. So if you'd like to take out your phones and scan that QR. I also have a paper version if anyone prefers like paper and pen, so I can pass that out. And I'll also take any questions before I conclude. I have 3 more slides after this.
I'd just like to comment. A big part of my job is public facing. And, one of my favorite things is connecting with people. There is such a level of what's the word for it? Disconnection. You see it all the way from the kids working into schools, and I know just for all of us, that sense of belonging and connection, it's so important. So I really appreciate hearing what you would say and, reinforcing in my mind that my direction's right too, because I do like to get to know people. And it's not all about what's for me, right? I have a responsibility to keep my nonprofit sustainable, so I want those connections. But I just got to meet some people at the VFW, and I just love that. Cross-country pitch, I ran in college, and just it makes life a little bit better, certainly in challenging times. So thank you for reinforcing this and sharing this. I believe in what you said.
Of course, yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing too. Yes, I'd say some of my best connections were times where I would be carpooling with a colleague to a college fair, and then like once he moved jobs, they actually hired me for speaking engagement, right? So if he went to my wedding, I'll probably go to his if he ever gets married, or actually one of my best friends from kindergarten helped me design my website too. And when I was in kindergarten, I wasn't thinking like I need to be friends with you because in 25 years I've designed my website, but it just so happened that she's a graphic designer now. So it's like you never know. It could be anyone, anywhere, anytime. Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Question. Sure. I know showing up to network events, it's the first step, but also body language. Do you have tips on how to show interest with certain body languages, maybe eye contact or?
Oh, that's a whole other presentation, right? Yeah. First and foremost is that open communication. So as much as I love stating like that this is just comfortable for me, it feels closed off, right? There's actually a great speaker. Her name is, see, I'm doing this now, right? So open. Her name is Vanessa Van Edwards. She's talks all about interpersonal communication. And one thing I learned from reading her book is how to point your body. So, do you ever, let's say, go to a restaurant, like here today, and it's almost like you're talking to someone, and your face and your torso are facing them, but your toes are facing the kitchen. So what you're really thinking about is you're hungry. So I think when you're facing someone, being cognizant of it's like your face, your torso, and your toes have to all be facing who you're speaking to. Even things like if you're, let's say, at your dining room table on your laptop, and let's say your child, your spouse, whoever comes over, it's a matter of closing the laptop and moving it aside so there's nothing in between you and the other person. Those are some things off the top of my head. If you're shy with eye contact, you can even look at someone on their nose or their forehead, it looks the same. So, yeah. Off the top of my head, I would say those are the big ones for me. Mm-hmm. Perfect. All right, let's conclude. So imagine that you were texting one of your friends or family members. So think of one loved one in your life and you just received a text message from them. And as soon as you receive the text message and you see their name, you immediately think about their face. But as you open the text message and read the content, you actually read it using their voice. But as you continue reading it, you can catch those subtle nuances like sarcasm or warmth. And this is in our personal lives. So when it comes to your professional life, maybe you're receiving an email instead of a text message, I want you to get to the point in your networking efforts where if you were to send an email or receive an email, that you would think about the person's face, their voice, their personality that's attached to it. And try it out, because if you ever receive a cold email, you'll read it in a voice that's just kind of a generic voice in your head, maybe even your own voice. But if it's a person that you actually know, you use their voice in your head because you've established that relationship, so it personalizes the getting to know them process a lot better. And it's important to add that face to your name because it strengthens those relationships. So sell yourself as a person before selling yourself as a business partner. Build relationships with people because you like them, not because you need them. And get to know someone for who they are, not what they can do for you. And it's important to add the face to your name because ultimately you are all the faces of your organizations. Whether you're an entrepreneur with a business or you work with a W-2 at an organization, you are all the face. You're all the face today of your organizations. And it's important to network, to build relationships as kind of like that friendship filter in a way where, yes, there is the boundary of friends versus colleagues. But if you let someone get to know you for who you are, it makes you that more memorable person, especially if that dopamine is released. So build relationships and network in the same way that you would make a friend. In the same way that I became friends with Sage. And you do that through demonstrated interest. Thank you for your time today.